Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Manuel Alex. I'm coming from Worldline, and we're going to discuss about the cross-border payments and the money transfers. We have here with us Marius Costin from PayU. I will let you make your introductions.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. My name is Marius. I work for PayU. I'm managing the global accounts. And of course, the cross-border is something that I deal with it every day. So hence my presence here.
Thank you very much. And we also have online Gaze Budwine. Gaze, are you online?
I hope so.
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Good afternoon. Gaze.
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry, I cannot join you because of the crisis.
We understand.
I'm sorry for that. I would have loved to be on stage with you.
So, Gaze, I'll let you introduce yourself very quickly.
Yes, I currently am the General Manager of the Dutch Payments Association, and also I used to be chair, but now vice chair of the Payment Systems Committee of the European Banking Federation.
Thank you very much, Jace, for joining us. So the subject is cross-border payments. It is something that we all have experienced in our life, being in private life and in professional life. And I'm sure that at least once in your lifetime you had, let's say, small worries when a payment was to go or to come to your account and it was not there. So we had many systems. We started with Western Union at some stage for the money transfer. Then cards were discovered, and the cards were used for money transfer as well. People were traveling with the card, going from A to B and do a cash out from that, until they understood that they can use the cards for other things as well. So let's say the cross-border money transfers, it is something which is crucial for the businesses. You can imagine that it can be very expensive, or it can be very cheap. It can take ages to make a money transfer, or it can take seconds. And we hope that the technology advances and it makes it easier to have those money transfers as a domestic or a cash transaction, let's put it this way. So I just searched on the internet yesterday about money transfer opportunities in the last week. And believe me, I had 15 hits. Things like PayHawk UK raises 112 million in order to offer a swift alternative. Digital wallets with Liquid Group in Singapore to supercharge cross-border payments. Adobe partners with MasterCard for digital payout solutions. Uniteller with Tunes to expand the services in APAC and Africa. And so on. Like eBankit in Portugal for fast cross-border transfers. Worldline, my company, which offered full-service cross-border solutions in India. Western Union and MasterCard extend strategic partnerships. So as you can see, you have more and more companies and solutions that are trying to implement in order to make the money transfer very, very easy and very, very trivial. So my first question to Marius and to Gate: what are the trends and the developments? As you can see, I just searched and I found in 1 week 14 opportunities. How do you see it, and what are your views on money transfer, and how do you see it happening in future?
Shall I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, it's a very challenging question because there are a lot of trends. I don't see any polarization, but what is obvious is that all the companies are investing heavily in technologies. And I think that the name of the game is to enhance the merchants to be able to capture all the markets or all desired markets. Being present in about 50 countries, I can tell that after the pandemic, the interest of the big global players in the emerging markets, where it's about, I think, 85% of the population, it increased. Hence the demand for fast, reliable, and easy services for cross-border payments. So where the trends are, I think that the trends are in the simplification of the process via technology. And here, as you mentioned, there are a lot of companies who can use one API, for example, to offer a lot of countries, a lot of geographies. The other part is how fast the remittance can be And here I think that blockchain, cryptocurrency, stable coins, and not only that, but in general, digital payments came with a very good offer that makes the payments more or less instant. And of course, I see more and more governments, because let's face it, for cross-border payments, the regulation are very important, being more open for the cross-border model, which before pandemic was not that easy.
Thank you very much. Gate, what is your opinion?
Yeah, well, it depends on what the perspective is that you take. Of course, it's true, because people are not paying because they like to pay. They want to pay. They need to pay because they buy something. They want to have something, and indeed, the customer behavior has changed definitely. Also because of COVID. Because if you can't go to a physical shop, you will shop anywhere on the internet, and that, of course, sparks the need for more and more cross-border payments. To be honest, from an EU perspective, it's already 30 to 40 years that the European Commission and that everybody in Europe has been working on the internal market. I can remember very old reports of the European Commission complaining about the banks and cross-border payments within the Union taking 6 weeks and being very costly. And this report was called Breaking Down the Barriers, and we're still doing that. So fortunately, we have the Eurozone, we have the single euro payments area. We've come a long way already in terms of standardizing and indeed making payments borderless within the European Union. So for me, cross-border is extra EU, or what we these days call one leg out, because what we see, of course, but that's also maybe already the second question, payments used to be domestic, then they became regional, like Europe, and now they've become global. And we're already talking about the one leg out SEPA payments, because why should we stop at the borders in this global environment? This is maybe a more holistic view on why we would need cross-border payments beyond the borders of Europe. And technology, as the previous speaker said, is probably not the issue here, because from a technical perspective, anything is possible, basically.
It's more a regulatory matter, probably.
And yeah, and also, I mean, it was domestic from the EU perspective. It's regional. It's becoming global, of course, and more significantly, because of this globalization, payments in themselves have become, let's say, of geopolitical importance. We will probably come to the European Payments Initiative, but payments are finally recognized as also being very important, not only to support the economy, but if you have no control anymore over your own payment system, your very sovereignty might be at risk, and that's what we see happening in Europe, and that's also where regulation probably comes in.
Thank you very much for that. But then, taking advantage of this, the fact that you're online and you are working with the Dutch Payment Association, how do you see the EPI, European Payment Initiative? How do you see that, I sent you the question, it was on the list.
Well, I just came from a discussion with our Ministry of Finance on EPI. Well, as I said, one can have many perspectives on EPI, and I think this morning Etienne Gauss said, well, EPC has no opinion, and I'm sure why he said that. Of course, I do not have a crystal ball, but what I do believe it's very much worthwhile. And as I said, since payments have become of geopolitical importance, if a truly pan-European initiative ever stood a chance of success, because we've tried many times in the past, and for many reasons, because we could not agree in Europe on what model we should have, and the intentions were good, but it never worked. But we never had this, let's say, this political tailwind from the European Commission, from the European Central Bank, that are clearly supportive of the concept, but not only supportive, but really sort of pushing, especially from the large countries like France and Germany, really pushing the banks forward to make this political this politically driven thing happening, and that's why it's very important. As I said, I just came from a discussion, but they still leave it up to the market. I mean, if it's not a totally, I mean, you want to achieve, let's say, mostly political goals, but you expect market participants to make it work, and that can only work if there is a sustainable business model or a public funding. And my guess would be there will not come any all-out public funding. So then somehow these authorities that really want to make this happen need to create the circumstances for commercial market participants to make it work, and that is in itself a huge challenge. So I'm a true believer in EPI in the concept, but it's also an extremely challenging one. But I've been around in payments for a very long time, getting old, and if I ever saw a moment in time where it really could work, after the success of SEPA, then it should be EPI. I mean, if that won't work, nothing will work.
Well, I share with you completely your views, because I also believe a lot in EPI. I'm heavily involved into EPI as well. And let's hope it's going to happen, because this is going to be an example for the payment systems, for instance. You know, the instant settlement.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say to the Commission that failure is not an option, right?
We hope so. So, Marius, how do you see from your company the new payments? How do you what are the implementations that you have made to make it modern, the payment system?
Okay, as I said before, we are operating in 50 markets, and our focus is on emerging markets. So worldwide, things in payments are not as homogeneous as they are in European Union, meaning that we face a lot of challenges. What we face in the latest 2 years, we face that big global players want to switch from the cross-border traditional model, like having one acquiring hub that is able to capture card payments everywhere in the world with the local transactional currency. Now we see more and more companies who would like to be localized from the payment perspective, because they would like to capture the entire potential of that market. And this is quite challenging, because I'm giving you a straight example that I deal with every day. A company that is incorporated in the Netherlands would like to capture local payments in Chile, then they want to have the transfer in Netherlands, and then from the United States to send money back in Chile for disbursement. Now this is something that it needs to be addressed in a very short time, and it needs to be handled for large volumes. So first of all, what we did, we enhanced this local payments availability. Of course, via technology, we have a tool called PayU Hub that is providing two things. On one hand, it provides our local flavor. On the other hand, it provides an orchestration model, because there is no such thing as that universal payment company. Hence, a global player, needs to work with multiple payment providers. Doesn't matter if they are acquirers, if they are PSPs or whatever. And we put a lot of effort and invested in that. We are exploring more and more the instant payments in various forms, as I said, in various forms. And now we are working in make it even much more simpler from the onboarding perspective, not to create a lot of friction for merchant in each market that they would like to capture. Now, this is a very tough job, because different markets, different regulations, different onboarding, different anti-money laundering policies, so on and so forth. We are happy to say that we made some big steps, and we are still working on.
Thank you very much. And how do you see the future? What are the challenges that are coming? What do you think? The blockchain technology, which is, you know, it's a buzzword for absolutely anyone, and you know, the remittance related to that. Gert, what is your opinion on that? What are the future challenges into that, and what are the trends?
Well, I think many of them have already been mentioned. I was listening, to be honest, to the previous panel, and I heard one of the panelists say that, well, why on earth would you be limited to taking out just a daily limit in cash out of your ATM? And why not have the same amount you could get from the branch that's no longer there? Why shouldn't you be able to get 5,000 from an ATM or something? That's a totally, from my perspective, a funny discussion, since we are in discussion with our central bank to sell the whole business to the cash business to the central, or sort of transfer the whole cash business to the central bank, and move all the functionality to the smartphone and not to the ATM, because just as a distribution mechanism that wouldn't work in my country. So that was a funny thing. A trend, of course, is coming to that. Cash is absolutely going down, and my country is in the Eurozone at least. Let's say one of the front runners with the least cash payments at the point of sale. So we have less than 20% cash payments, and more than 80% card payments at the point of sale. But of course, in the e-commerce space, it's even worse for obvious reasons. So cash is really something that is, in our case, totally on the way out as our ATMs, and therefore also as a distribution mechanism. But coming back to you mentioned blockchain. We used to joke, blockchain. Yes, it's a hammer looking for a nail type of thing. Maybe CBDC is the new blockchain. I joke with my good friend Dave Birch. But to me, DLT is just another technology. It's a facilitating and enabling technology for things to make things worse. And indeed, I believe that in the remittance business, in the more global environment where there's not enough standardization and infrastructure, interoperable infrastructures, the DLT technology might well be very, very useful. Whereas in the more advanced countries, regions like Europe, we're still a long way off, I guess, to make that work big time. And maybe with the introduction of the digital euro, we will see happening more there. But so let's say within the EU, it's not so obvious that in the short term we would see that. Whereas in the more global environment, where there's no legacy infrastructures in place, there might be much more opportunity for such technology to prove itself in the short run.
Thank you. And Marius, what is your opinion about the future payment? What are the future of the payments?
I don't see blockchain as being a challenge for the future, because I think that blockchain, as the previous speaker said, it's just another technology. It's already very well integrated. It's fully digital in this digital world and digital ecosystem. I think that cash-driven payment methods are challenging, and the second challenge that I'm seeing is in the regulation. So I think that the regulation is to keep up and understand what are the exchange mechanisms, the protection mechanism, how to fight against criminality, money laundering, this kind of stuff, in order to make the world indeed without borders. But I think that the future is bright. I see more and more people adopting digital payments. And I think that COVID was a huge accelerator. So COVID, either we want it or not, it has its own positive side. And I think this was a very big kick for the consumer to adopt the digital payment methods. Now, I think that emerging markets will be a buzzword for everybody, because they will try to conquer it. As I said, I think 85% of population is there, and let's face it, this part of the world are growing in terms of population size, which means as well it's growing in terms of buying power. So it will be more and more appealing for the global players. So technology, regulation, and emerging markets, I think that it will be the direction where the things will go.
Thank you very much.
Maybe just if I could just add to that, indeed, regulation, and especially the AML, KYC type of regulation. As my members tell me, already 1 in 5 employees in banking in the Netherlands is doing KYC and AML related stuff, which really is becoming a tremendous burden. Instead of developing good products and services for the customers. They're trying to check them out and notify suspicious transactions to the authorities, who probably most of the time do nothing with it. But that's a real dead end street, becoming a real dead end street for the incumbents at least.
Thank you very much. Anyone? Any comments? Titus.
As a challenge coming, because look, we have China, yes, which is full of QR. QR is a challenge, and also PSD to IBAN is a challenge. For cross-border, we'll see maybe a scheme coming in the coming years.
Well,
Pan-European QR-based IBAN to IBAN.
Well, the European Community Initiative, first of all, is trying to implement an European-based wallet, which will have instant settlement for each and every single transaction, which would be something good. QR itself is just another mean of payment, like EMV, like MaxStripe and everything. And it is true that, for instance, at Worldline, we have developed the acceptance of the QR codes coming from Asia, Alipay and WeChat. And there are lots of transactions, and we have noticed that people, the tourists, the Chinese and the like, are not anymore into the cash business, and they're actually paying with QR codes or with Alipay and WeChat. So it is a way to make cross-border payments seamless, and this is what we have achieved so far. And I'm sure that we will have to develop alternative acceptance methods for all these, let's say, tourists and travelers which are coming from emerging markets or less emerging markets. For instance, everybody's mentioned, I just returned from Africa, and the mobile money, like M-Pesa, Orange Money, and so on, it's very well developed. I'm sure that in the next years, there will be an interoperability between various mobile money payments in Africa, which today is not the case, but they're working on it. I can tell you that I think in less than 3 years, someone with an M-Pesa from Kenya will be able to pay in Senegal. That's sure. No, they use
SMSs. M-Pesa is with an SMS.
SMS based, yeah. So I'm sure that will come very quickly, and I don't see I can't wait to see it being able to make an M-Pesa transaction in Europe for these guys.
But to be short,
I know I'm too optimistic. You're going to say, right?
Just to add to that, I mean, the SMS is not the payment itself. So it's all overlays, and by the end of the day, somebody needs to move the money. I mean,
yep.
As you just said, Manuel, accepting an Alipay QR code is probably the easy part, but actually making the payment happen, that's underlying, is the more difficult thing, of course, especially when there's currency, cross-currency,
yes,
currency conversion. So I mean, the technical part, be it an SMS or a QR code or whatnot, is probably the easy part, but that does in itself doesn't make the payment happen, right?
Well, it facilitates the payment of the end user, and I think that will provoke the players behind to simplify the payments as well. It's the need that creates the solution. Sure.
No, the only thing I wanted to say, we can create seamless solutions, customer-facing,
yes.
And we would like to keep all the complexity that underlies the moving of the money eventually, that shouldn't concern the end user, right?
Correct.
So to answer straight to your question, I don't see what you say as a challenge. I see it as an opportunity. I think the challenge it lays in if it will be adopted or not. Because what has traction, for example, in Asia, like you said, the QR code, it up to now was not very catchy in Europe. In Europe, we had different ways of doing it. Now, I think that we as an industry needs to understand what consumer wants, because when we say that we want to be easy for the buyer, seamless, this kind of stuff, we have various options. QRs, SMSs, I'm talking about the way that you interact with the payment method, not the payment itself, what's behind it. Now, this is our job as players in the industry. But if you want a large mass of people to adopt something, for example, M-Pesa is very popular in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, yeah? Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. In Romania, they struggled for years to implement M-Pesa and didn't have the traction. So I think that the challenge lays in what it will be adopted, how we as an industry, we want to educate and offer to our buyers in our area of expertise, not only the education, but the appetite to adopt it. This is where the challenge is. This is how I see it.
Always Visa and MasterCard. Because the technology is newer, the functions are more advanced in China, the simplicity. So to me, Chinese system, a part of the political bullshit where they are, but the Chinese system is more modern, more flexible, more versatile. And this is the challenge I'm seeing.
But I think that we are talking about a market that is starting from a clean sheet versus a market that is having a legacy. It's like with the internet, you know that it was a moment when...
Yes, but
Still, there is a very different anchor in the legacy, very different anchor in the legacy, and very different regulation, because regulation is putting an important fingerprint on the way that the market is behaving. This is my opinion. Imagine that I'm giving you an example. Do you know that everywhere on the internet was saying that, wow, Romania is having in top 5 broadband, blah, 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 internet connections. But in fact, we were installing new technologies and we were competing with countries who were having internet at houses in 1980s or 1990s.
like in France,
Exactly. So we did not have a legacy. It is the same like in China or Asian markets where they started from a clean sheet. Now we need to move a very complex industry and market into new stuff. And here is the challenge. And now the question is, okay, is good for us? Yes, to be seamless is good. Yes, to offer people various ways of managing a payment is very nice. The question is, how much do they understand? How much do they want to adopt? It's about them. It's not about necessarily us.
And by solving their problems, we will be, let's say, simplifying on the back end our problems, which is the payments and the cross-border payments. And the cross-border payments. Okay. Any other question? Gert, any last words? Yes?
Well, I couldn't follow what the questions from the room, to be honest. So I don't know what
No worries.
previous discussion really was about. But I heard Mario say, indeed, about legacy. Those old enough to remember, because M-Pesa has been around for quite some time, and some of us will recall that M-Pesa came up because there was no legacy, there was no infrastructure at all, no fixed infrastructure, so it needed to be done because people needed to walk for days with a shitload of cash money. And being robbed all the time. And the only thing they could do is have a clever system of SMS messages so that people didn't need to walk 2 days to get maybe 10 euros worth of banknotes and then get robbed. So it all came about because there was no fixed infrastructure. That's why it developed so differently than in Europe, where we had this fixed data communication infrastructure, etc. So they sort of had to leapfrog, and that's always the case. I guess, and that's why what I was trying to imply, why I was talking about the one leg out transaction, the more global remittances. Of course, we have the SWIFT network, and there are infrastructures, but probably less sunk cost in real big legacy infrastructure, and therefore there might be better opportunities there for newcomers to quickly explore with the clean sheet, from a clean sheet,
Yes.
and make very quick technological advances there based on distributed ledger technology, because there is no legacy, no real, well, of course there's some legacy, but not big time, I'd say. So that should give great opportunities for innovation.
Thank you very much. Any last words?
Oh, no, not on my side. I would like to thank you for listening. I hope that I brought some useful information to all of you.
Yes. And it was an honor, guys, to get to know you and talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the preparation.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.